Welcome everybody to Sustainability at Work. In this episode, we will talk with our guest about how important but also how difficult it is to bring sustainability in a company and which are the important skills to develop. Before we dive in this episode with Virginia of Green Gorilla, I would like to give you some context to our conversation and why it is so important. According to a new study by the Carbon Disclosure Project with the World Economic Forum, just 250 companies have the ability to influence almost 30% of our entire annual global emissions. So companies are really key to solving climate change, but companies are made by people. Are those people prepared for the challenge? A new study from the New York University Stern Business School showed that among almost 2,000 board members of the 100 biggest US companies, just 6% had relevant credentials in environmental protection, and only 0.3% had expertise in either climate or water-related issues. This might be different in different countries, but the point remains we are very far from being prepared for what we need to do. So let's dive in with Virginia. Sustainability at Work is a podcast about sustainability in the workplace and in companies. My name is Samara and I've been working with sustainability for almost 10 years. Thank you, Virginia, for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. You have a past as an architect. You have worked, especially in the building industry, with different certification. But I think the interesting part of your journey for this podcast was especially when in 2018, you decided to found the Green Gorilla Consultants. And this, I think, I will let you say what is your purpose, but it says you empower sustainability professionals to make impact and advocate for sustainability. So it's exactly the journey you're trying to make. So trying to bring these skills and this knowledge to all people working in sustainability. Which I have to say, recently I was looking at a TED conference by Project Drawdown, and they said something that struck me very hard. It was, no matter where we work, every job is a climate job now. So you're working with sustainability professionals, but really now, today, we are all sustainability professionals. So I really think what you will share is going to be very interesting for everybody. You have Green Gorilla, and then you wrote a book recently, last year, I think. Yeah. And the book is Sustainable.
Sustainable, yes.
Yes. And I have here, it's this one.
Yes.
Exactly. And the extended title of the book is How to Find Success as a Sustainability Professional in a Rapidly Changing World. So why did you decide to focus so much on people and human resources?
Okay, let me start. You already mentioned that I used to be an architect. I always say I used to be, but anyway, by trade, by training, I worked in architecture for a few years. I decided to migrate into sustainability because I wanted to have more meaning in my day-to-day job. Forgive me, architects that you're listening to this, but I really wanted a higher purpose. And I always thought, even 20 years ago when I started this journey, that sustainability was the no-brainer thing for me. There was no other thing. I like that thing that you say, everyone works in climate these days, because it is what it is. We are in a world that has finite resources. Why would we want to waste them? Why would we want not to use them in the right way? Why would we want to harm the nature and the wildlife, etc. So for me, sustainability is absolutely a no-brainer. But in the last 16 years, I've worked mainly in the built environment, like you just said, mainly for a company that used to do research on sustainable buildings, and is actually the company that created BREEAM, which is the British equivalent to LEED for buildings. So an environmental assessment methodology to evaluate sustainability in buildings, which was a fantastic place where to start my career. And then while I was working there, and mainly in the training department, because I've done both the technical side and the training side and the business development. Anyway, I've done a lot of things while I was in that company. I was in touch with a lot of sustainability professionals, and I could see their struggles. That's what really pushed me 3 years ago to change direction again, slightly, how I say, because it's still in sustainability. But I could see the struggling people. I could see how they were they were competing with each other to get one more badge of recognition, one more qualification, one more technical training course. But then they were still facing the problem of a client that didn't want to spend more than the minimum, or they didn't want to spend anything at all on sustainability. For example, they were adopting BREEAM or LEED or one other of these tools, but they felt it was more like a tick box exercise. The clients weren't buying into the idea of sustainability. So you could see them, they were really struggling. And I thought, actually, I can't see anything in the marketplace right now that offers those services, training and coaching for sustainability professionals who are struggling to speak to their clients in the right terms. Because yes, the clients, of course, they are moved by profit, but actually, how are we selling that idea of sustainability to them? How are we promoting sustainability to them? Why is it a no-brainer for me and is a huge problem or a huge hurdle for my clients? So what that's what really made me curious, like what's happening there? Why part of the population actually think is the thing to do and others don't care about it? So that's where the thinking started, and that's where I started Green Gorilla. And the book that you mentioned, that was for me to clarify in my head primarily, what was the framework around this? So how could I help sustainability professionals to become more successful? And so I started with interviewing people. I started by interviewing, and you can see these interviews in the Green Gorilla YouTube channel. Lots of sustainability professionals that you would think are successful, that reach, the apex of their careers, they have huge following, they are influential, they manage to change things in reality. And I asked them, what's your secret formula? What are the ingredients? And then from these interviews, more and more came out the usual few bits that are always starting from communication, going through selling and influencing others, so selling sustainability to others, being resilient, so really learn how to take the setbacks in a way that actually teach you something. And then finally, project management, which is the one I added personally, because I realized that without planning things in a way that, makes sense, projects go out of hand. And often I've also seen through my career at BRE that if you are in charge of a sustainability project, you are a project manager, although you might not have received the right training for that. So you might as well learn a few bits to manage your time better, mainly manage people better. So that's where the project management element came. Because I could also see my colleagues struggling with feeling overwhelmed, having lots of projects, not knowing how to juggle all of them. So that element I thought was really, really important to become more efficient and more effective. So yeah, that's a whole thought process that came through, and then I published it, and lots of people seem to be liking it as a sort of self-help book for sustainability professionals, which is quite interesting.
Yeah. So you talk about training. What is the training of a sustainable expert or an expert in sustainability? And why are they lacking these more of communication tools? Are they not taught in school, or do you think it's something that they need to understand?
Not at all. The point is, I think half of the sustainability professional population doesn't know what they don't know. So I would give an example. You go into a meeting and the majority of these people who are technical experts will come in and start talking jargon to their clients. They will start just imposing their knowledge in a way without really listening to whoever they got in front of them. And that's not a good start when you want to influence someone. Obviously, the good start would be to listen to what the problem is, really deeply understand it, and then ask the right questions, and then see how your sustainability solution can address those issues in the most bespoke possible way. It's almost like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. That's what lots of technical experts do. But unfortunately, people don't know what they don't know. And architectural school, for example, doesn't teach you any of this. Maybe some of the more project management based university courses will give you some tips around management or communication, but they're very generic. They're not actually applied to the sector that we work in. So I think that's the problem. It's not taught, and actually some people don't even know they have a problem. They think the clients are stingy. They think the clients are just hardcore, and they can't, they just can't convince them. Well, actually, we know from the fact that there are people that deal with kidnappers that have managed to convince them to leave the hostage alone, that you actually can convince pretty much anyone. You can actually use your influential skills to change people's mind. And of course, you have to use it carefully as a tool for the better good for everyone, not of course to con anyone into anything. But it is possible. That's all I'm saying. These are skills that can be learned. They can be taught and they can be learned.
This reminds me a little bit of what I heard a big CEO of some huge company saying, that sometimes when you are a sustainability leader, it's very hard if you just enter that company, because sustainability is a position where you have to really be able to talk with all the department and be trusted by all the department, because you're gonna push all of them to do something that they were not doing before. So for a young person, that is a huge struggle, because I remember when I started, I didn't have that personal leadership, if you want, to be able to interact with people in this way, with this kind of power. And so I think that's also a huge struggle. So being young and being new to a new company and be in that position where you have to really do system change. So you have to be able to, in a way, in that moment, in that precise moment of emergency, to find a climate solution or a sustainable solution, you're really the boss of the company in that single moment. So that's hard.
It is definitely hard, and it's something that even people that work as consultants face very often. So when you are external to a company, or when you are new to a company, but you get called to, deal with a particular project, to advise on a project, how do you influence people that already have their own teams? And, human beings are inherently scared of change. That's the way we have preserved as a human species, throughout the millennia. So we tend to conserve our energy. We tend to see anyone that is external as a threat. So, and that's what happens a little bit when you come in as a new person, when you come in as an external consultant. Put on top of that you might not have that confidence to speak at any level with the right language, because that's another issue, isn't it? When communication, you can't speak to an engineer the same way you speak to a CEO. You can't speak to a 5-year-old child the same you speak to a colleague. So your language, naturally, when you speak to children, for example, adapts and changes, but sometimes it doesn't when you speak up, in the workplace. Well, actually, that should really change. You can't use your jargon, your technical terms when you speak to someone who is a business person, because they might not understand you. So there are several communication issues there. One, that you need your self-confidence to be able to speak at any level. And the other one is that you might face resistance just because you're new, just because you are external to the company. And so you need a little bit to work. Of course, you can. The thing that I always say is you can change yourself, you can influence others, but you can't do anything else apart from that. So the focus should really be starting from yourself. What can you do to change your mindset, to become stronger, more resilient, to acquire self-confidence in your abilities, in your capacity to speak at different levels, in being really an advocate of the message that you are bringing to people. And then you can influence others. So once you have that strong mindset, once you have acquired those tools, then you can go on and influence others. But if you start from a position of being unsure about your message or even yourself, you don't come across as confident, you don't come across as influential, you don't have that gravitas. So I think that's the process. And for a young person, especially, you mentioned, the age there, for a young person is obviously, it's a learning curve, because not everyone has that self-confidence from day one. Some people do, some others don't. And I see, unfortunately, lots of women even going down and becoming, a bit more mature. It's hard for us to speak up and to say what we think and be entirely self-assured. So I can see there is a bit of gender issue there as well from my own experience. And but again, it can be learned. All of this can be learned. It's just a process.
Mm-hmm. So with Green Gorilla, you're doing something which I think is amazing. You're creating some networks, networking activities, collaboration, some groups. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit us about these and what people experience in your groups?
Yeah, so sustainability cannot be done in isolation, that's for sure. I always say you can be a troublemaker, which is fine, and is also in the book, how to be an impactful troublemaker, because I think we need troublemakers. People like Greta Thunberg is a troublemaker, isn't she? But it's great, because it's a force for change. However, you need the followers. You need other people to come with you in order to really make a change. Otherwise, you are a lone nutter. You know, no more than that. So in my work, I realized that I was doing these training courses, which is fun. I love them and I stand by them. But the bit that was really missing was the practical element. It's like, probably you have experienced that, your listeners might have experienced that too. You go on a training course, you think, oh great, fantastic, I've learned so much. And then you forget, because you move on with your life, and not much has changed after, especially some time passes, 2-3 months, and you're like, I don't even remember why I went on that course. Although in the moment, maybe it was amazing. So I realized that was the bit that I wanted to help people with. So I created these masterminds, which are groups that I open and close. They're small groups, so they're not more than 10 people, 12 people at the most, because I want people to feel comfortable within these groups to speak, and talk about their weaknesses and talk about their struggles, and to really make community with other people within sustainability so that they can grow together. So we do the training together, but also there is the practical element. So every month I set a challenge, and then throughout the month the people within the group are expected to do this challenge, which is effectively putting into practice whatever they learned during the classes. But also they share, for example, with one of the latest masterminds, they're of their own accord, which means that it's really working, because it's nothing to do with me. They created a group to support each other, to post regularly on LinkedIn, which might seem a small thing, but actually the more people talk about their expertise, their understanding of the world, their knowledge in sustainability, the more they explain to others all of this, the more sustainability will progress. So they decided, because they all had a little bit of fear of posting regularly on LinkedIn, or feeling a bit exposed in that sense. So they created that group, and they shared their drafts, and they comment on them, and then they post them, which I think is fantastic. It's a way of supporting each other towards, bigger things and better things. And every group has its own identity in a way, and they do different things. There's another group that is more focused on sustainable fashion for some reason, and so we share a lot of information about that. and so again, it's a way of networking with people that have, a sustainable heart, as I would say, but also growing together and starting making a change together. Because I always say it's a shame if you have that knowledge, but even if you have that passion, just the passion for sustainability, if you don't put it to good use, if you don't share it with others in the right way, of course, without becoming a preacher, which nobody really likes, it's a shame you're not using that knowledge in the right way. And we have a responsibility as sustainability people to share this with others, because we have a huge challenge to face, or more than one actually, and we all need to pull in the same direction.
So from your experience with this networks group, I'm curious, how are young people reacting? I mean, I feel that in a way we are failing them on a world level, from politics and from economy and jobs and many things. What are the difficulties they find when they try to enter this world? I guess their values are very strong, especially about sustainability. And also maybe a question for people who are watching us: how do you retain these young people very enthusiastic about sustainability in a company that maybe is moving slowly?
So I asked myself the same question recently, and I decided to open a graduate group, because I do believe in the group formula, and I believe, in this as a way of growing together. And it's not just me talking, it's actually everyone talking to each other and learning from each other. And because of what you just said, I saw, and also because I received so many private messages and direct messages on LinkedIn asking me, from graduates asking me, oh, can you help me, because I'm confused. So the majority of them are either confused because, for example, they took a degree in geography, which is very generic, and then at the end of it, they love sustainability, they want to work in it, but they have got no clue what to do next. So obviously universities in that sense are failing them a little bit, because there isn't that orientation element there. Although I know they do it, but obviously not in the right way. And then you got all these people that maybe know what they want, but they face employers, for example, that want a lot more experience that a graduate could have. Say, 3 years experience, minimum experience, when you are just come out of the university is impossible. So you're right, the world is failing them in some ways, and it's a shame, because in my experience of working with graduates, again, from my corporate days, they're the best employees. They're definitely the best employees, because they are passionate, because they have a lot of stamina, they have a lot of willingness to do and to do well, and they're not driven by money, they're driven by their values. And if the company is moving slowly, they do get frustrated, and maybe you lose them, which happens sometimes. But honestly, the graduates are the best employees ever. It's just, they need to be nurtured, they need to be helped, and they need to be supported in that process. And of course, at the moment, there is also an element, unfortunately, of eco-anxiety in many of them. Young people suffering from, maybe stronger than, all of those people that have hardened up in the meantime. But they do have an element of being scared of what's next, and if they don't do something, the world is going to collapse. In this group of graduates, which I just launched at the beginning of February, so it's the first month that we do it, this is what I'm trying to, help them, first of all, to understand, where they can be placed in terms of, and marrying a little bit their skills, their strengths, their values, and the workplace. But also I'm trying to push some positivity towards them and just say, look, the alternative is not pretty. So let's be, like Christiana Figueres says, let's be stubborn optimists. Let's try with all our strengths and, and might to actually change the world for the better. Let's use our gifts to do that. Because alternatively, what do? You sort of stand in a corner and cry. That's all you can do, or worse, which we don't want. So that's what I'm trying to do from, in my little, in my little capacity, but I'm trying to support these people to have more clarity, but also use that passion in the right way and really channel it.
Do your kids have climate anxiety?
My kids are 5 and 10, and the 10-year-old sometimes, tells me things that, makes me think, okay. But we talk very openly about sustainability at home. They see me, I try and teach them by example, and they see me, for example, I'm vegan, and they're not vegan by their choice, and until a point in which I hope they will understand what the whole thing means. But I'm just showing them, that you can be perfectly happy eating vegetables, and I know there is not a completely sustainable solution. If the world was completely vegan, it wouldn't work. You need some people to eat some meat to make the soil richer, etc., etc. So it's a complex and very fine line. But I'm sort of counteracting everyone else that is eating meat in the world in a way. But anyway, so I'm trying to show by example what we're trying to do as much as we can. And they're very acutely aware of what's going on. But I always, again, push the idea of, well, we need to do something. Everyone has a role. Everyone can contribute and can make a difference.
So one more question is about women. You also have, or part of a group of women in sustainability.
Yeah.
Can you talk us a little bit about that? Why you decided to create this group and to manage this group, and what are the findings you have from people who are participating?
So I'm actually the hub leader for one of the branches of the main Women in Sustainability network. So I lead the Hertfordshire, which is this region here in the UK, the Hertfordshire hub. The reason why I decided to start this is not because I'm a feminist as such. Well, I never defined myself as a feminist before, because I believe anyway in equality. And I think that's, but then, by leading the group, I realized actually this is what feminism is, really trying to push equality across the board. But the reason why I decided to take this role on was because in this region, I couldn't see anything of this kind. There are no groups coming together. There are, women in construction and women in manufacturing, women in this and that, engineering, etc. But there wasn't a women in sustainability here. So I thought, this is a good opportunity, because this particular region has a lot of sustainability consultancies and really big hubs of sustainability working in this area. But the second thing was also because, as I was saying at the beginning, women, I see them struggling particularly with confidence, with, I'll give you an example. If a woman wants to apply for a job, or she's looking for a job, she will look generally, on average, at the job description, and unless she had 99% of the stuff that is in there in the job description, and the must-haves and the desirable even, she wouldn't apply. A man, even if he has just 50% of these qualities, he would apply and see how he goes. Why is that? So I thought, why is that? Why are we downplaying ourselves so much all the time? Because then I've read the research and everything. Apparently women actually, forgive me, misters out there, and men out there, but actually women score much better as leaders than men in the majority of metrics that are used out there, being that decisiveness and emotional intelligence and being able to take the right decision. And, they actually have a much better performance than men, apart from a couple of things. So why is that we don't have, well, a lot of women at the top? We know that, only 6% of women in the 500 top companies are actually at the top. So only 6% of women are CEOs. Why don't we reach the top? And why do we downplay ourselves in the day-to-day lives? So that's what really struck me. I was like, okay, I want to help these women to become more impactful and overcome their own imposter syndrome, because that's the main issue that we all suffer from. And so I thought, okay, why not? Let's do it. And Women in Sustainability is a network, again, of women coming together. Is growing quite fast. from the main hub down to all the branches that we deal with, and we organize fantastic events. I have to say, really, really compelling events that share knowledge, help women grow, network with each other, and really be supportive to each other. Because the other thing that you might notice is that actually women at work sometimes are not best of friends. There is a lot of competition, and it's really why we already suffer from some gender bias and some problems and that kind. Why don't we have to be supportive of each other? So I think these groups have started a different kind of narrative. We love sustainability, but we're also women, and we want to help each other to grow in the sector. So that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you, Virginia. It was nice, very nice to interview you and to share your knowledge and your experience. And thank you again.
Thank you very much for having me, Samara. Thank you.
Bye.
I hope this conversation gave you food for thoughts. While many of the conversation around sustainability are focused on technical skills, I love how Virginia with her work refocused them on soft skills and on the ability to communicate, collaborate, and persuade. Thank you for listening to this episode of Sustainability at Work. If you like this episode, please consider rating and sharing it. It will help others discovering it. And the more we are learning about sustainability, the better. You can also subscribe on YouTube. Sustainability at Work is a series created together with Traces.Dreams, a collective platform to tell the stories of our time and connect the dots by embracing complexity and the diversity of views and ideas. See you next time.